I-80 at Fernley, because there's no more large tracts for land for either housing or industrial developments of a large size anywhere in Washoe County or Story County. So next slide. So Roger and Lance, and there's a great two-part series by Ariana Bennett on Channel 2 News. It's on their website right now. They just aired it earlier this week that talks about TRI-2 and our land bills and all that, in case you want to check it out. But Lance and Roger, they just don't know, they've never heard of the word retirement. They have to do another project. And so, in keeping with Lance's original vision, that development has to go eastward out I-80 because everything else is hemmed in. Lance and Roger have planned, and it started our planning prompt with engineering and terrain analysis and the sales and pricing and utility started about 5 years ago. But we're looking at a 20,000 acre industrial park on the southwest corner of Fernley within the city limits. We've already acquired, Don Roger has already acquired 10 square miles. We've got a couple hundred acre feet of water, which is enough to get us rolling. We're in close contact with the city of Fernley and Lyon County. But there is one major last remaining hurdle, and I like our new monument sign down here. That's the first design. We think that looks pretty good. Next slide, please. Here's where it is. You can see it's right next to TRI, and although it looks small, that's about the same size as the current built-out area of TRI. And so we don't think that, because of some other issues, we don't think that we don't think that necessarily this is going to be filled with high-density facilities, but it's going to be very attractive. It's still on the I-80 corridor. It's still near enough to the population centers where the workers are. We've got great access to utilities. And so this is, and it's adjacent to TRI. We can engineer roads connecting the two parks together. And the land out there is really good. Most of it is flat, which we did not have when we started TRI. And you can see that dotted yellow line. We're proposing a bypass road that comes off the Wadsworth interchange, cuts through the middle of our project, and then hooks back into 95A south of town. That will keep all the truck traffic out of Fernley. As you know, there's some hard turns in there. But we're very excited about this. Again, we purchased maybe a third of that we already own, and some water rights. This next slide, I've only shown this twice in public. It's not on any website. But this kind of shows you our situation on the land spill. So you can see that the brown and purple are private ownership. And we've purchased a lot of the private land that's in our project area. The issue is all the green. The green you can see is these are sections of land, 640 acres each. They're in a checkerboard fashion. And so the BLM owns all of the green sections. We currently have a lands bill pending in Congress. Congressman Amodei, I've been back there 3 times working with our lobbyists. Congressman Amodei has introduced it in the House. It'll come out of the House and be passed probably in the August time frame. We're still working with the senators, Senator Cortez Masto, Senator Rosen. I had a meeting with the committee staffer that runs the lands bills for the U.S. Senate, a guy named David Brooke, who works for Senator Manchin. We're feeling pretty good. We're feeling good enough that we're still throwing a lot of money at lobbyists and this whole project. That's about 12,000 acres of BLM land. And if we get that lands bill through, which we hope this Congress, we started on this 4 years ago, this is a game changer for us. You can see what that would do for the contiguous land and the ability to bring in some industrial. Now, a couple comments. Number one, in this environment, you can't get the Wall Street companies and the tech companies like we have without being environmentally focused, and we are. We love our wild horses. Wild horses are maybe sometimes controversial and some next to the wood. We love our wild horses. We partner with the Wild Horse Preservation Advocates. We promised to do so here. Lance Gilman repopulated the Virginia Range with bighorn sheep back in 2012 after they had gone extinct in the 1950s. And so we've had, in order to get it through the Senate, we've had to commit to follow through on those same types of environmental commitments in order to get our lands bill through the Senate, and we've done so. The other thing is attainable housing. And again, nobody knows this better than you guys. I mean, the average pricing right now in Reno and Sparks is so high that even mid-level managers, as you know, have a difficult time qualifying for a house locally. So we have, in order to get it through the Senate, we've had to commit that we're reserving a portion of this project for attainable housing projects to be decided by the mayor currently and Lyon County, and we've done so. So we're really excited about this. Next slide. So this lands bill across all of northern Nevada, and Mark Amade's got a whole suite of lands bills for a lot of the northern Nevada communities and counties. They're the only answer to attainable housing and to further economic diversification. You know, if all of us remember back to 2011 and we were gaming based, not much diversification, that was ugly during the Great Recession. And we are really well placed right now for diversification, but we're not there yet where the region needs to be economically. I mean, TRI, we didn't have any companies close during the pandemic from 2018 to 22. Not any of our companies closed. The more of that tech, the more of the Wall Street companies we can bring in, the better, the more stable we are in economic downturns. And failure would worsen the housing crisis because there's more people coming in, more payroll coming in, more money coming in, not much land to put on more housing. And, you know, you may hear about people saying, well, we can build vertically, or we can redevelop, tear down existing structures and rebuild. We're not, Donnie, myself, Lance, and Roger, we're not residential developers, but I know the residential guys tell us that it is almost impossible right now to build attainable housing vertically or to redevelop to get attainable housing because of the cost of materials and the cost of contractors with all the other economic facilities going on. Here's the most important thing, I think, about the lands bills. If we don't get them done, one of the early tech companies, I've been involved with the negotiations and the showings for every single major company that's come into TRI since 2011. And one of the first tech companies that came into TRI, he and Lance made a handshake deal, and the gentleman turned to Lance and I, the decision maker, and he says, you guys are going to love what's going to happen next. He said, because tech companies are like a flock of geese. They fly overhead in V formation. They see a cornfield or a wheat field or a milo field down below. One goose drops in, and if he doesn't get shot, the rest of them come in right behind. And that's what has happened. But the same thing in reverse is also true, in that if we have a period of 3 or 4 years, no land available, attainable housing crisis gets worse and escalates, they will find a new cornfield. You know, economic diversification, economic development in our world is a contact sport. Texas, Florida, New Mexico, Arizona, they are coming after these people hard. We're a smaller state. We don't have all that much to give them other than fast permitting, which helps. But other states are giving them free land. They're giving them power at 3.5 cents a kilowatt hour. They are throwing all kinds of goodies out there. And so if we have a lull of 3 or 4 years, our pipelines can dry up in a hurry. To give you just an example, Donnie Gilman did $50 million in industrial closings last year. He's got 9 figures in contract in escrow for closings this year. His pipeline is stacked up. He is running out of places to put these people. And so if that happens and we get all this land sold out without additional land, additional large developments opening up, our economic diversification will stop. And so before I take questions, I want to end on this one. I called Lance this morning. Lance is semi-retired. He's our broker and our godfather, and still does the broker decisions for the Lance Gilbert Commercial Real Estate Company. He was in Florida. He's in his vacation home, and he was out there taking around on his Harley. And I chewed him out for even thinking about getting on that bike at his age. He didn't listen to me, of course, but I said, Lance, if there's one thing you want me to mention to these folks, he said, what would it be? He said this. He said, well, just remind them that back in 2010 and 2011, when things were so brutal locally, the Reno unemployment rate was 14%. Out in Lyon County, it was 22%. Reno was seeing 1,100 foreclosures per month. People being evicted, and we all remember how bad that was. Lance said, remind the good folks in the residential real estate world that he came to groups like this. And he passed out hope like it was little pieces of candy. And he kept saying, hang in there, a wave is coming. And it did. And he said, tell these folks that if we get these land bills through, and with the Tesla truck plant, and the Redwood campus, and the Big M, and all the others that are coming in now, there is a second wave coming. And he said, you tell those residential real estate people they better have their gun belt strapped on, because they're going to have a lot of business over the next 5 to 10 years. So with that, I'll take some questions, if anybody has any, or comments, or people want to throw something at me. Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a solution for the I-80 corridor
Question is, do I have a solution for the I-80 traffic? And the answer is yes. And so there's several solutions. First off, actually Donnie and Lance sponsored a bill. It wasn't successful in this legislation about making that corridor more safe and reducing the accidents, but pushing that bill did cause NDOT to change some speed limits. They're adding enforcement, so the number of accidents on I-80 have already started going down because of that effort. That's number one. Number two is Mayor Lawson in Sparks, who is a visionary in our view of the highest order, is pushing hard for his own lands bill that would extend La Posada out all the way from Spanish Springs out to USA Parkway on the north side of I-80. And that would add a surface route. It would open up 40,000 acres for attainable housing and real estate development. And Roger and Lance and Donnie have already been out there looking at some of that land, because it's pretty good land up there for industrial development. So that surface road would be helpful. There's a lot of effort also on public transportation, possibly light rail. There's a group that's being formed by one of the folks at RTC for a more regional transportation kind of planning commission. Right now it's a 501c3, but it's gonna mature, I think. But there's a lot of talk about public transportation. Most of the companies out there, the Tesla, Panasonics, all the big employers have car shares, vans, pooling, that kind of thing already. But public transportation, I think, is a solve it. And I'm a big fan of light rail. I spent some time in San Diego when Roger and Lance first hired me, and San Diego has great light rail. And we have rail inside the park at TRI. And so light rail is a future solution. The issue with I-80 is we went from 6,000 jobs in TRI in 2014 to 25,000 jobs by 2021. And, Lance is optimistic, and Lance was predicting a big wave, but that's even bigger than we thought it was going to be. So the growth was so fast. We're still kind of catching up with that. And I know NDOT is focused on it. We've got a new NDOT director that just came in here a couple months ago. She's focused on it. So we're hoping that with all those fixes here, that'll be, hopefully it'll improve greatly. Any other questions, comments? Yes, sir. So the question is, does our land spill include the Reno land spill? I don't think so. The packet that, as I understand it, the packet that Mark Amity has is mostly for the rural communities and rural counties. Us, Carson, Churchill, there's 5 of them total. And I just heard this week he's going to add a Clark County land spill that they want desperately to that packet, which we think is great because that'll, I think, help get the attention of some of the folks we need to be looking at it. So, but I don't think the Washoe County land spill is part of that. Now, to be fair, the Washoe County land spill has there's a lot more complications there. You have a lot more communities involved, a lot more jurisdictions involved. I think perhaps it's taken them a bit more time to get that coordinated, which is totally understandable. So I would suspect that the Washoe County stuff is going to go through as a separate packet. That's what I've heard. So, anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm getting told I'm off, so thank you all very much. Good to see you.
Thanks so much, Chris. That was awesome. Great information there, too. All right, so we are going to do a couple things here before we bring on our next speaker.